Derbyites, we are here to talk the Battle of the Bastards, the latest episode of Game of Thrones. Break it all down with that little Gold Derby Emmy perspective we love so much. We're with Marcus, we're with Ralph, we're with Amanda. We're recording now, Amanda. Just heads up. So we've got the A team for a Game of Thrones episode 9 of a season. It's always the biggest. Let's just start with Ralph. I haven't spoken to you in ages. Ralph, what's your hot take?
I'm not sure what a hot take is, but my take on the actual episode is it was great. It lived up to all of the that we know about season 9. I thought it was a lot of fun. It kind of reminded me a lot of Lord of the Rings, the Two Towers, the middle one where it was that 45-minute battle scene, and then you had the very end another army came and saved the people that were getting destroyed on. So kind of had that, which I really liked, and I thought it was great. When Game of Thrones really sticks to simple stuff and knows what it wants to do, I don't know if anybody does it better than they do.
Marcus, what do you think?
It was great.
Okay, Amanda, your thoughts?
This episode was perfect from start to finish. It really was very well thought out. It stuck to only 2 storylines, and we really saw a lot of girl power, so I was very thrilled about that.
You got a puppy, Amanda?
Yes, that's my little dog decided to make an appearance.
Is that your direwolf?
She does not like it when the direwolves die, so she will bark at anyone who kills a direwolf. So if you see season 1 when Ned goes out there to kill one of them, she will bark at the TV for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So.
I'm a big fan of the Ramsay Bolton death for your dog. She would have loved that scene. The dog's getting their own. So I don't know where to start with this sort of episode and breakdown, but we are an Emmy Awards website, and last week the Emmy ballots were released. And Marcus, you want to tell us what has this episode been submitted for? It's been submitted as far as I believe, writing and directing. Do you want to explain that for us?
Yeah, they're submitting only 1 episode for writing this year, which is a good strategy. Because if you're a voter and you see 5, 6 episodes on the ballot, you may have trouble picking which one. So there's only going to be 1 on the ballot, and it's this one. And the showrunners are the ones that wrote it, D.B. Weiss and David Benioff. And for directing, they actually submitted 5, and that's because there are 5 directors. Each of them, I guess, chose 1 episode to submit, and this episode, Battle of the Bastards, was one of them. So it could win writing and directing. Last year they won for the season finale. Mother's Mercy won writing and directing, so it could happen.
Ralph, what do you think? Is this a writing or directing contender to win?
Definitely a directing one. Writing, I was kind of puzzled by, just because there's not much dialogue. But I guess a lot of the dialogue is pretty intimate because it's between a brother and a sister, and it's between battles and then just I don't really think you need to. Does not need to be too much dialogue in something if you can show it through sequences or through emotion or anything. And I think you got a lot of that in this episode. So, while a little puzzling, and also, we'll probably get into this later, I'm not that fond of this season, so I don't really see many other episodes where they could have submitted. So it's probably a good choice.
This season, Ralph, is better than last season.
Thank you.
That's false.
This is the best season they've ever done.
You thought the last season of Veep was good, though, and we all know that was a good season.
The last season of it was great. It was an Emmy winner for Best Comedy Series.
Ralph.
Ralph.
But no, earlier.
What? Yeah, go, Marcus.
Earlier when you asked me what I thought, and I said it's great, it's because I don't want to overpraise something that's already, almost perfect. But I do feel like this is one of the best hours of TV I've ever seen. And I've seen millions and millions of hours of TV. It's probably one of the top 5 best episodes ever. It was just...
Of television or Game of Thrones?
Television.
Okay, well, what a snake, Marcus. Amanda, do you agree? Is this one of the top 5 episodes of television ever?
I don't know about that. That might be a lofty 5 to put it in, but I do think it's one of the best 5 episodes of Game of Thrones. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think if I was surprised it wasn't nominated for cinematography, considering I think they submitted like 4 or 5 episodes, including next week's episode, which makes me think something's really big is going to happen, camera work wise. But don't you think this would be Kit Harington's episode if he did get into supporting actor?
Yeah.
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 Go ahead.
Let's talk Emmy tapes here. The first, Ralph, I'd like you to weigh in. Is this one of the top 5 episodes of television of all time?
I'm gonna plead the fifth on that one because it's Marcus, and I just don't want to embarrass him. So, no, it's not. It may be one of Game of Thrones' best episodes they've ever produced, though I think they've had a lot of really great ones under their belt throughout the first 5 seasons. But I mean, it was a great like adrenaline rush and everything else. I think it was definitely one of the top 5 best episodes of this season for Game of Thrones.
Okay.
People in the comments write, you agree with me. I know you do. Just write that you agree with me, and then we'll move on.
I think we should have a poll on Twitter with the first one being top 5 episodes of television of all time, top 5 episodes of Game of Thrones, or top 5 episodes of Game of Thrones Season 6. Let's see which one wins the poll. I think it might just crack the top 5 Game of Thrones episodes of all time.
I can see that.
I can see maybe that. Like, I can see... just come into mind, I'm thinking... Season 1, you've got a Golden Crown and Baelor. I love those 2 episodes.
Yeah.
There from Marcus. You've got the Red Wedding episode I really enjoyed. You've got the
Purple Wedding.
Purple Wedding. I love the Purple Wedding. The Purple Wedding was good. I love the Hard Home was very good.
Blackwater.
The Battle for Blackwater was quite good. I'd say this one might be a bit better than the Battle for Blackwater. I might say.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I there's about 5 or 6 episodes that are sort of in the mix when I'm thinking of my favorite. And this one isn't clearly the best of them. Yeah. Anyway, let's talk Emmy tapes because the door's been open on this. Kit Harington, is he got the best Emmy tape out of anyone from this episode? I don't think he does. Ralph.
I don't know who else it would be. I think if he gets, if he's lucky enough to be nominated, I think this would be a slam dunk choice from. I don't really know what else he's got at the beginning of the season or anything. And I wouldn't say for Sansa. I think she was great, but I don't really see. Emilia Clarke was on there for like a couple of minutes, and she spent more minutes on top of the dragon, like destroying stuff, than she did with dialogue or acting. So. Peter Dinklage was okay, but I think he's had better throughout. I don't really know who else it would be if not for Kit.
I think Sophie Turner's better than he is in the episode, but I think this would be his choice as well. I think this would be both of their submission tapes if either of them got nominated. Marcus?
Can we give an Emmy to the Giant? Because he was fantastic. He's not on the ballot, but come on.
I love 1-1.
Oh, he has a name. Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah, I looked it up.
You did your research before the Slugfest. That's great.
I did.
Pretty good.
But no,
Kit Harington. Game of Thrones fans watching this love their research.
Yeah. Kit Harington, I think he's going to get nominated for the Emmy. I really, really do. Every story this season in the media has been about Jon Snow, has been about Kit Harington. I even have one friend who thinks Dinklage is out and Harington is in his place. It could happen.
Is it you?
No, I have them both getting it.
Yeah, I have them both in now. After this episode, I finally decided, and I agree with you. He has been the center focus of the entire season, the lead up before. Is he dead? Is he alive? And then to have this, and he did so much without a lot of dialogue when he was just desperately trying to get to Rickon. I would have loved for them to throw that poor kid actor like 1 or 2 lines before he died. Because he's never had any dialogue on this show.
No, he likes walnuts, I believe, from season 2. He likes a good walnut or 2.
He loves running in straight lines. He doesn't like to zigzag when he runs, which...
okay. Yeah, we'll get to
thought
that in a minute, Marcus, because that was a huge error in the Game of Thrones on my watching of it. But like, I think with Kit Harington, I think like he's been good this season. He's been like, there's been a lot of media hype and stuff, but we do see performances with a lot of media hype not get like nominated for Emmys. Like, what about Empire last year?
That's
like,
true. Yeah.
Like, I don't think that the Emmys always go with the most hyped, and I think I just feel like Kit, like, it's been more about the plot with Kit's character this season than it has been about the performance. The talk.
But they're voting as we speak. They're voting. They have like 5 more days to vote. So this episode couldn't have come at a better time for the writing, for the directing, and for Kit, for best series. I think that really is going to help.
And this episode shut down HBOGo.com. Like, it was popular that the website crashed if you were trying to watch it last night online. So that speaks volumes for how popular this episode was. And when you're front and center in it, that's going to help.
Do you think, and you can chip in here, Ralph, if you want, I do think Sophie Turner's scene with Ramsay at the very end was the best acting scene of the episode. Ralph?
Okay. I mean, I don't know. I don't really think she did much other than that, like, those couple of lines before the dogs ate him. In terms of like acting, I think she had better at the beginning of the season. This one, she was gone way too long. She was great in the tent with Kit Harington, and then she was gone for a long time, and then she came back, and that was her final scene. I don't know if this would be the one to actually win her an Emmy, though. It doesn't really seem, especially if we're talking about Kit Harington kind of being like it being his episode. I think he kind of overshadowed her in that instance.
Yeah, I don't think either of them could probably win an Emmy with this episode. Maybe Kit if he gets nominated, like, because there is a lot of buzz and hype around his performance and his character this season. But, like, yeah, I don't think Sophie Turner... I think Sophie Turner's performance has been more spread out over the course of the season than a Maisie Williams or Amelia Clark that have sort of their, episode that, like, you've got a winning tape behind.
She still got her revenge, and she was great in every scene she had, from telling Ramsay you're going to die to the end when she went in there and sicked the dogs on him.
Yeah. Let's talk about this episode in terms of, I want to start this week with who had the dumbest move on the show rather than the smartest move or the best move, because I think, like, this is probably, let's go down the line. Who do you think made the dumbest move this week, Amanda?
Ramsay. He should have kept his army behind the wall. Mm-hmm. It might have slowed this down a little bit because it turned out not to be smart because they were all dead by the time he got back to the castle.
He's so cocky. He's so arrogant.
Yeah. Yeah. Marcus, do you agree? Ramsay, dumbest move of the week?
I might cheat and copy yours that you mentioned earlier and say Rickon, because we all know that when you're running from an arrow, you don't run in a straight line. I think we all have known that from a very young age.
He's 12. Come on, you got him a break.
Well, and to his credit, he at the very end is when he got killed, and he was running straight, but he was so close at that point that you would run straight. You wouldn't really zigzag that far away from your brother at that point. You're only like half of a football field away. You're going to run straight because
he's got his arm out trying to grab you.
Do you think Ramsay was missing on purpose the first 3 and the 4th one he finally aimed, or do you think he was trying to kill him the whole time?
He was waiting till he got like just close enough to kill him right in front of Jon Snow. Because if you look at, and he's such a master archer that there's no way he was just, the way he was kind of looking off and just shooting where just close enough to scare him a little bit. He knew what he was doing.
I'm not sure he's like missing on purpose, but it didn't seem like he was like caring that much the first few. Like, just like, okay, boom, 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 scare him, and then he's okay. I better get him now before he gets to Jon. But I think he's 12. But the Game of Thrones does not discriminate against age. And there is no handicap for being younger in the Game of Thrones. So I think it's just when you're running away from someone, you zigzag, you mix up your pacing, you make your run an unpredictable run, and like I don't care how far away you are from the guy shooting arrows at you. You mix it up a bit. You do a little bit of a sidestep here and there. You make it hard for him to hit you, and I think it was a bad move by Rickon. I also think it was a bad move. Like, I just feel like Jon Snow starting the battle also made a pretty dumb move.
Right.
Like, Sansa had this big discussion with him saying, hey, Jon Snow, make sure whatever you do, don't do what Ramsay wants you to do. And it seems like when Rickon died, Jon Snow did exactly what Ramsay wanted him to do. And it almost, if it wasn't for Sansa, would have lost him the battle.
Yeah, that's fair. And how many men of his own did Ramsay sacrifice just shooting arrows into the crowd? That seemed kind of like a stupid move.
In hindsight, having lost the battle, it definitely was a stupid move.
I don't know. I think that was part of the strategy, though. That was the brilliance of Ramsay, which I personally am going to miss a lot, because he had to build that body of walls in order for the rest of the army to make that half circle around it and trap everybody. So I'm sure that was part of what he was thinking. He's just so diabolical and so evil. He was completely different than, like, I already lost his name, but yes, thank you, Joffrey, who was just kind of an annoying bratty kid. Like, Ramsay was just evil, and you were like anticipating, waiting to see what this dick was gonna do as his next move, because he was just so awful. And I kind of I liked that, because it was almost just like having a real villain there for that. And so I don't think it was a dumb part. I mean, I think he just sacrifices guys because he's Ramsay. Of course he's gonna do it. He killed his own father. He has no problem sacrificing his other dudes to build a wall to prevent them from, escaping.
I wish they had kept him alive. I mean, I understand why they killed him, and the way they killed him was perfect. But I do love a good villain, and I agree, he was a really good villain. And maybe they could have found a way to keep him alive, like Ben Linus on Lost. He was around till the very final episode.
See, I actually think Sansa made the dumbest move this week, because I think
oh my god.
Instead of having the dogs eat him, she should have cut off his manhood and slit his throat, because he raped her. Like, if you're gonna get back at this dude, great, feed it to the dogs or whatever you want, but at least punish him a little bit first. I don't know, that would have been my thinking.
He could have sent it to Theon. Oh,
yeah, exactly. That would have been great. See, so many options she had, and she missed it.
How is that? That's not a dumb move. It's nothing to do with the strategy of the game, Ralph, being less vengeful than you would have liked.
How is that not? If not, Ramsay would have never succeeded if that wasn't part of the game.
I don't think it was actually Ramsay's I don't think Sansa's gonna not get to the Iron Throne or not get power in this game because she didn't cut Ramsay's penis off. I don't think that's it. No, they cut it off, but not gone to the dogs.
But I'm pretty sure that's not what anybody said. What you asked, what was the dumbest move? That was the dumbest move of the episode, because he did something. He violated her. She should have violated him back.
Yeah, I don't know. I think having dogs eat you alive is a pretty big violation as well, I would say. And I'm sure they got into his junk as well in the mix.
We can hope.
Dogs like hot dogs.
Yeah, but no, I think I do think that Ramsay was the dumbest, made the worst move of the week, just because I guess. Even with Rickon, he was captured at the beginning of the episode. He ended up getting killed by the person who got... Ramsay was in the position where he had more numbers than the other side. He had the stronghold of Winterfell. He fell the greatest height out of anyone. due to largely his own complacency. So I think So who made the smartest move? Who made the best move in the Game of Thrones this week? Who was our biggest mover and shaker?
Well, I'm sure Littlefinger thinks he made the best move, but Jon Snow might be a little pissed when he finds out that he was the one who orchestrated this marriage.
Yeah. How pissed can you be, though? Like, he would be dead.
That's true. They might be willing to forgive it.
He should be. I don't like whether he will be or not, but like he wouldn't be any better off without Littlefinger right now. Marcus, who made the best move?
I think Yara had a really good move.
She did.
Actually going to Meereen, meeting with Daenerys. That was a really good scene that we haven't quite mentioned yet.
No.
Just having Theon and Tyrion meet for the first time since the pilot. Is that right?
I think so.
I think it was like the second or third when he came back from the wall.
Okay, that was a great scene, and kudos to her. I think it's gonna work out.
Great deal. She was prepared to make the art of the deal for Yara Greyjoy. She was prepared to give Daenerys what she wanted. She was prepared to appeal to Daenerys's sympathies of having a woman ruler and being replacing an evil father king. She was able to empathize with her and things like that. I think Yara Greyjoy made a really good move this week and is really up to stakes in the game now. And she's on team Daenerys. Ralph.
And I just love the girl power of that because they both seem really excited to kind of team up with each other. Daenerys really was pleased by it. She's like, but I love Yara, who's willing to flirt with her, going, I'm willing to marry you if necessary.
Yara really knew how to appeal to Daenerys' sympathies. Like, that was a really good scene for her. Ralph, who do you think made the best move this week?
I would just copy Marcus's answer. That's exactly who I was thinking the whole time.
Yeah, I do think, and Ralph, I think you're gonna disagree with me. I do think it was Sansa Stark's week. She was able to get that call on Littlefinger, come in, save the day, and then finish the job by making sure one of her biggest foes in the game was over.
And she doesn't play by Stark rules. She's not doing this in an honorable kind of way like some of the other, we've seen other Starks. She's willing to play it a little bit more sneaky than the other ones.
I agree.
But poor Bran, he's going to feel awful once he finds out that Rickon was killed because he was the one who sent him to that house to protect him. So that's going to be painful.
Bad. It'll be bad news for Bran. He might not get it for a couple of seasons. One consolation. What about Daenerys though? This was a good week for her as well. You would have to say. Ralph, talk us through Daenerys' week.
I don't know. I think it's back to Amanda's point, and I think the overall kind of point of, or not point, but unveiling of Game of Thrones that we're seeing, the women are just taking over the show. And unfortunately, my biggest problem, like I love that aspect, my biggest problem is the Jon Snow aspect, that it's kind of overshadowing, like all of that hype is overshadowing what's going on, because you have people like Sansa, and you have, and you have Daenerys, and you've got, what's her name, the other
Cersei.
Lannister, yes, thank you, yes, Cersei. I mean, you have, and Diana Rigg's character, and Marjorie, and everybody. You have all these people just like conniving and making these things to overtake their thrones back and their castles back, and it's all the women. Like, you don't really have, except for Jon Snow, you don't really have a main male guy who like is owning everything. I mean, you're just seeing all of these strong women take everything over, which is what Daenerys showed, mightily with her dragon and 3 dragons by kind of just ripping everything to shreds in the ocean. And I wish the focus was more on that, because I think it would make the show that much better. So I'm hoping that's what it'll be next season.
Yeah, I'd argue Tyrion is probably a male character in the show that has a real sort of center, like,
Yeah, but even him, I mean, he's bowing now to Daenerys.
Yes, that's true. But some of those female characters you mentioned also have.
But he's on a mission. He's advising her in a way that
that's true.
Because otherwise, she's going to go out there and just start killing a whole bunch of people, and that's going to have ramifications that she's not prepared for. So she needs Tyrion, and for me, it's more exciting to have those two back together because that's what I was excited about last year. And looking at the previews for next week, it does look like he's going to have at least a big episode or at least a big monologue because his words from the trailers, you're entering the great game now and it's terrifying.
Yeah.
We finally saw that kind of clip.
And look, what I'd like to say, what I think is also true of this episode for Emilia Clarke in terms of the Emmys, this is by no means a tape for her. She's got a much better submission. This would by no means win her the Emmy. But it is good for her that she's got another episode where she's quite strong. And this has been not a season where she just had one good episode, but throughout the whole course of the season, she's had good moments and scenes and things like that. And it is good that the week when those ballots are being filled out, she's got quite a prominent role again. And I don't think she'll win because of this episode, but I think it keeps her in the mix and in the conversation. And because the problem is her episode was very early in the season, so it's good to just remind people of her and her character.
And if Sophie Turner can get in, which would be coming over an age bias and probably Lena Headey, then she's really going to help Emilia Clarke out because she's basically going to have 2 episodes then.
Yeah. Is Lena, what do we think the state of Lena Headey has been this season? Because I don't think she's had the strength of the 2 seasons beforehand. Just in terms of material, nothing against Lena Headey. I think when you talk about, Nikolai Coster-Waldau, season 2 was a great season for him. Season 3 did a bit less. It's more just the ebbs and flows of this show. But I don't know about Lena Headey this year. Will she be back? Is she locked to be back in this year, Ralph?
No, I don't think so. I predicted both of them last year. I predicted all of them correct the year before. Once when Emilia Clarke was nominated, once when Lena Headey was nominated, then both of them last year. I don't think she'll get back in this year. But your Nikolai thing actually triggered my memory to what you were talking about with Jon Snow. In that you have this character that's so popular during that season, and you think they're going to get nominated for an Emmy, and it just doesn't happen. And, I mean, who wasn't predicting Nikolai to get nominated, that season where he got his hand cut off? I mean, he was incredible, and it just didn't happen. And I think in terms of the Emmy voting, because I myself am a voter, if this episode would have gone last Sunday and the finale would have been this Sunday, I think it would have served more to what you guys were talking about, because a lot of voters, I imagine, I know my ballot, I already filled all of it out and submitted it since voting started on Monday, because I had 5 days to do all of that. So unless you have the procrastinator voters who are watching Game of Thrones, and then I think it serves more. Or if the ballots would have been made available today, after yesterday's episode, I think it would have been a stronger thing. So that's why I'm not too into making him a lock in the supporting actor category. But back to Lena Headey, yes, I don't think she's safe, and I don't think she'll probably get back in.
Do you think, Ralph, that serves Maisie Williams well, since she had a very big episode the week before the Emmys? The week before you filled out. I'm not saying you necessarily voted for her, but yeah.
I don't really think that her character has been anything to write home about this season. I think her storyline is probably the most questionable and kind of boring of them. There was a lot of complaints about that last episode where she turned out the candle, and then you didn't get to see the battle. You didn't get to see what she learned or anything. It was there was no payoff at the end of her escape. And then I don't know. I'm more annoyed that I just don't buy that she was stabbed, the knife was twisted, she had trouble getting out of the bed, but then this girl started chasing her, and all of a sudden she was an Olympic athlete and doing somersaults and rolling down stairs and bleeding profusely, losing all kinds of blood, and then she still survives. I mean, there's just so many questions about it that, I mean, that's my personal thing, but I don't think she has a shot, and I think it would. There are other people on the show, like Amelia Clark, and like God, even Lena Headey, that would be more of a nominee worthy than she is.
Okay, I would say I get your complaints about the Olympic athlete and the bleeding and all that sort of stuff, because I did think of that when watching it. But if I was an Emmy voter, that episode would have really made me want to tick her off.
I'm glad you're not, then. Glad you're not.
I don't think Lena Headey's out of it yet. I reserve the right until I see the season finale.
Yes.
Because they keep bringing up Wildfire, and she keeps saying she's going to burn the city to the ground. So
it does look like next week could be her episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, she could be. There's just so many on the. If you're going out of Game of Thrones mindset and you're looking just at drama supporting actress, there are so many candidates in that category that unless you're like an exceptional, Maggie Smith is going to come back for the final season of Downton Abbey. I mean, I don't want to like get off on a tangent, but there are like slots that are really, not as secure as you would think.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. So yeah, we've got a big. So who do we all? You thought Yara Greyjoy made the best move, Ralph. Who did you think made the best move in the game, Amanda? Again.
I'd say Yara and Daenerys teaming up. I thought that was a really smart move.
Yeah, Daenerys didn't just win the battle against the slave traders, but she also it was a good deal for her with Yara Greyjoy as well, and a more beneficial deal to her, and someone that she can work with a lot better than this uncle that's coming down. So I think that's a good move for Daenerys too, and I think a good move. I think Tyrion, I was worried about that she'd be just fuming at some of the decisions he's made, but I guess in the sort of middle of the battle, he was able to talk his way around what the situation there is in quite well, and actually made her make some good decisions too, gave her some good counsel. So I think Tyrion had a great week as well. It was a lot of good weeks for players that we like in the game, from Sansa to Yara to Daenerys to Tyrion. They all have bumper weeks, and a bad week for characters we might not like Ramsay.
It was just nice to see the good guys win for once.
Yeah.
Those poor Starks for 5 seasons. It was just nice to finally see them get a win in their category.
Here's my one worry about Game of Thrones. I'm starting a bit worried. It's looking to me way too obvious that Daenerys is going to win. Like, take over Westeros, get the Iron Throne. It just seems like that's what most... the edit to me is suggesting that Daenerys is looking very good, but that seems too obvious now. So I don't think that is going to happen.
Until we know Jon Snow's lineage, I'm not going to say she's the winner, because she might end up being the one to aid him, if that theory actually is true.
Okay. Ralph?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Amanda. I don't agree that it looks that obvious, just because I think when something is too obvious is when Game of Thrones kind of throws you off of your game and then throws curveball or something. So I'm waiting for that. I just think that as Amanda pointed out, everything looks so good. The last episode, like all of the good guys won, that I'm so nervous for the next episode because there's one more left. If it was a finale, it would be great. Everything would have been like with the bow tie and good, but there's one episode left for them to just come and punch us in the gut.
And it'll be interesting to see whether they go with the punch in the gut or they use the final more as just to tie up some loose ends from the storylines this year. Because they've sort of done a bit of both in Game of Thrones season finals. Yeah. So Ralph, why is this? I want to know now. Why is this season not as good as last season? Because you're totally wrong about that.
No, I'm completely right, and there's so many reasons. I remember last season getting the first 4 episodes when they were made available to press from HBO, and watching the first 4 and was like, this is going to win Best Drama Series. Like everything is just so perfect, and like the story is flowing so well. I text Marcus, and Marcus and I were like, yeah, nothing's going to beat this, and then it just got progressively better.
I remember the email, Ralph, that you to all of us saying how that was going to win after those 4 episodes.
And then this season, so I just have, my thing is like I like Game of Thrones so much. It's a great show. It's one of my favorite drama series of all time. And I don't like when shows go into a kind of gimmick jump the shark moment. Like the Jon Snow thing with Kit Harington, him coming back to life, just really irked me. And not because he came back to life, but because he came back to life without any kind of ramifications. Like, does he eat the same? Does he go to the bathroom the same? Is he cold-blooded? Does everybody know that he's back from the dead? Like when Buffy the Vampire Slayer, when she died and she was resurrected from the dead, she brought back stuff with her, and like you saw that play out. And like a good drama, I feel, will do that. There's so many plot holes this season. Like it's like they're doing it just for like the fanboys that want to like have all of this action and stuff, and and be like, and that like The Walking Dead and want all the Walking Dead characters that like they once died and then they all come back to life, or they're like tricked somehow. Like I don't like when you get tricked like that. Like I want to see kind of the depth, and I want to see the character evolve. And I don't feel like they're doing much of that, and they're just concentrating too much on Jon Snow when, like I said, there's this really great underlying theme of all the women that are coming to power, and I'd like to see more of that, and more, how that's going to affect everything and whatnot. So it's like that, and then the whole, we were just talking about the storyline with. I forgot her name. With the other little Stark girl, who was once blonde. Arya, thank you. With Arya, it's like so boring and just like kind of in there. I want them to reunite and stuff. I don't know. It's not as fulfilling as last season was to me, when there was so much happening, and it seems like they wrapped stuff up and they, developed and made storylines strong and everything. So at this point, my vote will go to House of Cards, because I don't think Game of Thrones is up to what it was last year even. And season 4 was probably the worst season for me. This season's not as bad as season 4, but it's just not going to get my vote for best drama series this year.
What do you think, Amanda, comparing this seasons to other seasons?
Well, traditionally Game of Thrones is kind of a slow burn, and they did kind of start from the ground running a little earlier last season. I think that's fair. But as far as jumping the shark with Jon Snow, I think it depends on how many times you're brought back to life. As far as that goes, if I remember hearing correctly, because I remember the one guy had been brought back a few times. That's when they started seeing changes in him. Mm-hmm. But until we knew his lineage, I didn't want him to go. I still felt Jon Snow had storylines that needed to be told. And I think this season's actually, the later episodes have been really good. And I liked season 4. I can't believe you did the trial episode. I thought it was a really good season overall. I think it had some really strong episodes. But I think when you boil it down to 6, it's probably still going to win Best Drama Series.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think, very strongly disagree with you, Ralph. I think season 5 was a bit... I think season 4 and season 6 had in some ways, and we've still got a final to go this year, and maybe this will change my opinion, but have more, arcs that I think the season 4 arc from the Purple Wedding through to the Trial by Combat in sort of the second to second last episode were good bookends that framed the series quite well, and I think this season has done quite well too, not with as a deliberate sort of framing, but as sort of, I guess to some degree with the bookend of Jon Snow coming back to life, and then the battle for Winterfell, and sort of this return to sort of things from season 1, these harken back things to the Starks back in Winterfell, Arya back sword fighting people, Daenerys getting back with the Dothrathis, these sorts of things. It seemed like there's been a bit more of a maybe complete vision this season in the show, and a bit more purpose than last season, where I felt like each episode was ping-ponging around a bit more.
Yeah, but see, I think the arc story can, if you do it well, I think it can be great, but yeah, it's just so structured and can sometimes get a little stale if you have if you just concentrate with one arc. on a whole season. And for me, Game of Thrones is so outside of the box. It's so something different on television that when it does, stray and go into that adventurous zone, that's when I appreciate it more. And that's what season 5 was for me, because it had so many little things going on and everybody kind of had their own storyline, rather than us just concentrating on Jon Snow for an entire 9 episodes to wait till he comes to this battle. Like, that to me just doesn't really, and then you throw in Arya every now and then, that just to me doesn't really, like, it doesn't excite me. Like,
we have not been concentrating on Jon Snow.
Yeah, no.
Yes, we have.
I think about the merging of the worlds. The world's getting smaller.
Episode 3. We're on 9. It's already been 4 out of the 9 episodes have been Jon Snow.
I have been surprised post-Resurrection how little of Jon Snow we have seen. I actually think in some ways we've even seen a bit more from Sansa's perspective than Jon's in that sort of storyline. Like, we're seeing more her meeting with Littlefinger and striking that deal than we are Jon meeting up with people and planning stuff and sort of finding out what he's really thinking about things.
But going back to what you said about 4 and 6, what I like about the overall arc of the storyline is that you could almost cast veins out to it, or branches out to it, where you're like, okay, here's why Sansa is in the Vale. Here's why this is happening. Here's why Daenerys is kind of thinking about maybe going to King's Landing because they're in such turmoil. Here's Tyrion going this way. And that's what I like about this, is that the worlds are merging together, and all these storylines are kind of finally seamlessly coming together. Even at the end of last week's episode, where Arya is standing there with that faceless man going, "No, I'm Arya Stark of Winterfell, and I'm going home," and just walks out. That to me is finally closing a storyline I didn't like.
But that's exactly it. That storyline was so pointless that all they did was waste time when Arya could have been doing something completely different. They're not, if they don't do anything with that storyline later on in the season, like the faceless man doesn't come back or something happens, then that would have been just a pointless storyline. So why even have it, and why make it the centerpiece of like 3 episodes?
But it was just as pointless in season 5 as it was in season 6.
I would say it was more
that's because you were just getting the beginning. You didn't know what the build-up was. It was starting its storyline. Here, we got to an end, and it ended on kind of a thud.
See, I prefer the pointless ramp down than the pointless ramp up into the storyline.
See, I thought Arya's storyline this season made more sense because it was about finding herself again and not wanting to be a nobody. She wants to be who she was born to be, and that says something about not wanting just to kill people because you're given a name. She's got a list.
The one thing I will say is I do agree with Ralph that I don't think Game of Thrones has drama series locked up this season.
Oh, no, not 100%.
It's my slight front runner, but I could just as easily see it going to House of Cards. Because even though I prefer this season, as Ralph has shown, clearly not everyone prefers this season. And also, is Game of Thrones the type of show that the Academy loves to the extent where they're going to give it 2 best drama series wins? Now, it won so many Emmys last year, I'd say probably. But there is a chance they just felt sort of a bit of pressure to give it to Game of Thrones, and that they actually, House of Cards is more a show that's in their wheelhouse.
If they love House of Cards so much, why haven't they rewarded it already? I mean, not the Breaking Bad years, but
yeah, couldn't you have said that about Game of Thrones or Breaking Bad?
No, I mean, I think with Game of Thrones, it's got that sci-fi bias. It could take time to be taken seriously, but House of Cards seems like their classic kind of show.
I think all of those arguments kind of get thrown out the window because last year was the first year with the popular vote. If House of Cards' first season had come out and there was a popular vote the first season House of Cards came out, it would have won Best Drama Series over Mad Men for the 4th time. I mean, I think that's just the way. I think everybody would kind of agree with that because it was so popular then. And so I think this season here, at least in the U.S., because I know you're out in Australia, but I know you follow it too. The election is huge over here. If House of Cards can the Democratic and Republican conventions are going to be in July, a month before voting actually begins. If House of Cards can find some way to, really kind of bask in that and either re-release itself, I think it's got a lot of potential. But with the popular vote, with so many people working for HBO that are Emmy voters, and Game of Thrones continuing to set records, not even like going down in ratings or anything, I think it still has the upper hand. But as somebody who, was so enthralled with it last season, this season I thought House of Cards was really good, and it would have my vote, not just for that, but also just because of the atmosphere that's around. And I know living in Hollywood, it's still something that's getting talked about a lot, and only because the election is going on. I think if there wasn't an election this year, House of Cards would be an afterthought, just like it was last season and the season before. So I don't know. Go ahead.
You don't think there could be some fatigue with the election going on, and the whole season's about the election, and it's like more, just maybe too much?
I think there would be fatigue if there wasn't somebody like Donald Trump in the election.
The HBO movie that's being written as we speak.
Yeah, probably. When you have somebody like that, I think you're kind of there's no real fatigue. I mean, I think there'll be major fatigue after, but then you can see the same thing about, all right, like Matt brought up, they gave Game of Thrones a record-setting amount of Emmy wins last season. Is there going to be fatigue by Emmy voters of, all right, we gave it everything last year, let's not give it everything this year? Who knows?
If it goes up in nominations, then I'm going to stick with it.
That'll be a good bellwether. Like, that would be a good bellwether. So we've got although sometimes we read too much into creative arts nominations and wins. Remember the Boardwalk Empire.
We know Diana Rigg's not going to get in, right? So that's already one less vote that it's going to have to make.
If she has too many episodes, is that what happened?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's in supporting.
Apparently she's going to be in the season final, which is why she was on the guest ballot. That's what Marcus told me before the chat. So unless Marcus is wrong, which could be possible, I don't want to rule that out. But no, she's going to be in the 5th episode, which is why she's out. So ironically, Amanda, to bring this full circle, that first episode where she had one line, and I was like, she's going to win an Emmy now because that line was pretty funny, and with this popular vote, that's probably all she needs to win it. If she wasn't in that episode, she probably would have won the Emmy this year. That episode has been what's taken her over the limit, and now she can't compete in the category. So.
Yeah, I thought the one where she called her the most despicable person, Lena Headey's character, the most despicable person she's ever met. Would have been a great submission.
I love how she said, I'm thinking if you're the most despicable person I've ever met. Like, you sort of go, because you probably are, but I am putting thought into this.
She so could have won for that episode.
I would have loved her to win the Emmy this year.
Why didn't they submit Ian McShane? That seemed like a no-brainer to me. I had to double check that one.
What do you think, Ralph? What do you think?
I don't know why you would. He didn't really do anything.
Oh, I think he did enough to get nominated, and at least he was different than we've seen him in everything else, where he's playing some kind of sleazy villain. It was a completely different character for him.
I think he could have won. I think he could have won it, to be honest. I think it was a self-contained performance. It was a sympathetic performance. His scenes were long enough, and it's in last year's drama series winner on a popular vote sort of system. I think he could have won it. It didn't particularly connect with me, that performance, and it's not one of my favourite Game of Thrones ones, so I'm not upset. Like, I'm not, sad that he can't win it or anything. But I think he could have if he was on the ballot.
He could have got another nomination, but I think in a popular vote, Max von Sydow is still probably in a decent position.
Yeah. So, Anyway, so, very good. I think they need to change the requirement for guest and supporting actor to 50%, not less than. Because I think a show with an even number of episodes is disadvantaged.
Well, I think there should be at least an appeals process depending on how much of one of these episodes they appear in. Because if you're just laying there dead and they count that as an episode for you, then that doesn't really seem like much of a fair decision.
Yeah, I can see that too.
I think if you're an actor and you're paid a guest actor rate and not a series regular rate, or and that includes supporting, I think you should be eligible for guest actor in any Emmy category that you could potentially get into. Because Diana Rigg is not a series regular.
Isn't that why they changed the rule? Because they had some people who were like in 20 episodes or something?
You had John Lithgows that were pretty much like the second main character in a season of a show winning guest awards.
Aaron Paul should have thanked him for not being in the supporting category that year, because he would not have won that first Emmy of his.
Mm.
That's another discussion, but still,
I don't mind the percentage rule. I'm just saying it should be 50, not less than 50. Because I just think, like, if you've got a show with 6 episodes and 3 of those episodes you're in, I think it's okay if you can use a bit of discretion and decide whether you're a guest or supporting player there.
Or maybe it should just be based on how many episodes, because I think when you have 24 and you're in like 13, that definitely seems supporting. Whereas if you're in...
You mean guest?
5, yeah, guest. Yeah. But where you're in like 5 out of 10, that really does kind of seem more like a guest still.
I
don't know. I think what about like how much you do in an episode? Like how much you move the storyline along? Like, I mean, is anybody going to argue at the end of the season that Diana Rigg was a lead actress or a supporting actress in this show? No, of course not, because she wasn't. She was a guest actress, and even though she was in 6 or 7 episodes, she really didn't have too much to do in any of those. She had one really good episode, and I think if they have a committee that can determine what is comedy versus drama, 60 minutes, they can have a committee to determine, what you're supporting or your guest.
And I think that's fair, because when you think of somebody who's like Dan Bucatinsky or Joe Morden, who won for Scandal, where they really did seem like supporting actors because of all the work they were doing on those shows, then yeah, a committee might be the best decision to go with.
Anyway,
they don't ask us to fix it, so.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, there we go. Talking about Game of Thrones, season 6, episode 9, The Battle of the Bastards. Hopefully, it was fun hearing us talk about some of that Emmy sort of angle of things. So I don't think there's really anyone else online talking about Game of Thrones from that perspective. And God knows there's a lot of people talking about Game of Thrones online from a lot of other perspectives. So it was great talking with you, Amanda, and you, Ralph, and Marcus. Had to rush off to, I'm sure, some fancy event. Check his selfies tomorrow. Yeah, so thanks for watching, guys. And join in the discussion on Gold Derby forums and message boards and all that sort of jazz.